Hey guys, welcome to the Badaboom podcast. This is Chris, and today we're talking Jujutsu Kaisen 0, the new anime film based on the manga and also the anime series. If I sound like I don't know what I'm talking about, that's because I really don't, and that's why we have a special guest today, Robbie.
Hey, what's up?
So Robbie is my go-to in all things anime. So we both watched the movie. I liked it. I watched it a little too late. What you think about the movie, Robbie?
I really, really liked it. I didn't know it was a prequel before I saw it, so honestly didn't know what it was about until I watched it. But apparently, there's a whole prequel manga volume to Jujutsu Kaisen, and this is adapted from that. So I liked it.
Yeah, and for me, I to be honest, had no experience with it. I kind of like saw it in passing. I've seen people post about it. You know what I mean? People are
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, it's on their list of like, you got to see this, you got to see this. You know, after Demon Slayer, everyone's trying to like put you on to the next big thing. To like, hey, if you ain't on this, you don't know shit.
No,
So,
right. I felt the same way. That's why I started watching the anime.
so I kind of knew about it, but you know, it is interesting because when I watched it, I was like, oh, I'm glad it's a prequel because I have no idea what's going on. So it played really well. You know, these kind of things, like, you know, we both saw it on a screener. I wish I had seen it in theaters because these movies really play really well in theaters. I remember
Yeah,
seeing the
agreed.
last two My Hero movies in theaters and they were, you know, hyped as shit. And there's some really cool scenes in this. I did mess up by watching this too late. You know, I didn't expect I wanted to go in blind. I didn't want to watch any trailers or kind of dig too deep. I'm like, you know, very rarely these days do I get surprised. And you know, it's like 2 a.m. and I'm fucking watching like demons and kids getting killed and shit like that. I'm like, maybe I should have saw this a little bit earlier.
Yeah, Jujutsu Kaisen's surprisingly dark. But I mean, that's what I feel like everyone's into these days. Same thing with Demon Slayer and how like big that was, especially the movies. So it's like people like this darker kind of anime style with like really good battle sequences and stuff.
And for people that don't know Jujutsu Kaisen, could you give like a little bit of a breakdown, like what the anime's like, and then kind of what you thought this prequel did to set up possibly the second season of Jujutsu Kaisen?
Yeah, so Jujutsu Kaisen is about sorcerers that enroll into a school to learn how to basically combat cursed spirits and like exorcise them because cursed spirits are like dangerous and stuff. So for this movie, I was like really looking forward to like seeing more of like Yuji and stuff, but I didn't know it was a prequel, which, you know, my fault, but I wanted more like background on like all of the other school characters, which I love that we got for like some of the main ones. I enjoyed it, but I feel like it could have like dived a little bit deeper.
Yeah, for sure. I think like the one drawback of like these movies all the time is that because they, you know, are support these very popular series and mangas, they can't really do anything that changes anything too much. They kind of have to like do something big and then put all the toys back in the toy box so that people who watch the anime or read the manga don't go like, hey, what about that? Like
Yeah,
all
no.
the stuff that happens in these movies, and this is, you know, it looks like Jujutsu Kaisen 0 included, they could never address again. It's like one of those things where it's like, hey, it could happen. Maybe they reference it maybe once or twice in the series, but they
Yeah.
never really have to talk about it again if they don't want to.
Yeah, it was a really good introduction to getting to see Ghetto, who's like a big villain in the first season. It was really nice to like get to see how he like came to be, and like he's even more unhinged, I think, in the prequel than he is in the actual season.
Yeah, what I found interesting about him was just, you know, obviously I have no experience with it, but, you know, the way him and Sotoro interacted, I thought that was cool. And then, yeah, it's just like the demons were cool too. I didn't expect all those like designs. I saw the poster and I thought it'd be like, oh, maybe they're slaying these demons. I didn't know they would be using them to like fight each other.
Yeah, so that's one particular like special instant. Like that's the only person that's ever I've ever seen do it in the entire series. Like I guess because his family lineage, their ability is to like bind cursed spirits. So he like accidentally trapped her into protecting him, and he was like bitter about it the whole time. But it's like you kind of did this yourself.
Yeah. And I thought like that was crazy too, because like what's cool about it is that it really is like a dark fantasy too, because it has all this action. There's a little bit of like romance. There's a little bit of like spirituality. There's a lot of stuff going on at the same time. It's not like
Yeah,
one thing at the same time. Like, that last little bit where, Rika is about to kind of like use that like ultimate blast or whatever. You're like, oh wow, this is really sad.
yep,
And if I didn't know this was a prequel, I would have been like, oh my god, it really feels like they're all gonna die right now. But I know that's not the case. So I was like, oh, they'll make it through this. Another interesting thing for me was just, even though it kind of like, obviously with Demon Slayer being like really popular, I thought it was cool that it mixed kind of like two things at the same time, where you kind of had like that high school dynamic, but also like you have very serious things going on, like very violent and gory deaths, the world at stake. So it was really cool, just this whole world designs and all of that, especially for someone that had no experience with it.
hmm
It is cool just to see something again that I was surprised by. I was like, oh my god, this is something cool to experience that's different, unique to me. I'm not guessing what's gonna happen. Even though just from watching it, I'm like, oh, this seems like they're kind of getting into the beginning of where all this starts and stuff. And it was cool to enjoy it for what it was.
yeah, and that's I feel like even well, speaking for me personally, like I like the animes that more they have that focus on like everyone's like everyday life and like the mundane things. Like they still go to like school, but it's like outside of that. Like they're all just like badass fucking like exercisers and like sorcerers and have all these dope ass abilities. And it's like I feel like that is what really has been resonating over the last few years, and that's what we've been seeing with like what animes everyone's more leading to.
Yeah, and it's crazy because these movies, like, when I was a kid, you'd only see maybe like Pokemon and Dragon Ball Z. You get like,
Mhm.
a week in the movie theaters. Like between like Demon Slayer and this movie, they like literally break all these records worldwide. It just shows like how well these things translate across the world. And like, even for me, where there was very little familiarity, I thought it was dope. It was cool. Like I would have been like, hey man, I would have definitely saw this in theaters. And now I'm kind of like in a position where I'm like, oh, you know what? Let me crank up that Crunchyroll account and let me watch this.
Yeah, well, I mean, Jujutsu Kaisen is on HBO Max. You have HBO Max.
Oh, it's on HBO Max. I had no clue.
The whole first season's on there.
I knew they had some anime because they had like the Crunchyroll section, but I know they sold Crunchyroll to Sony, which is
Funimation.
Funimation. So I was like, oh, now that you say that, I'm like, oh, that's where I see the poster all the time.
Yeah,
Uh, Dad brain, sorry. Uh,
subbed, dubbed, all of it. That's where because like, especially with Demon Slayer, like there was just such a hype about it. That's what made me watch Demon Slayer, and now I'm just like freaking obsessed with it. Jumped on to watch Jujutsu Kaisen, and I'm like, okay, these are good animes, and it's like that's what's getting everybody talking. I'm like, yeah, I'm into this.
and for you, where do you feel that this fits in that universe? Like now that I know you've seen part of the first season or all of it. What do you think does this set up any like type of stories that you're excited about, or does it feel like, hey, they may never address this again?
I feel like it could because I haven't read any of the manga either, so I feel like it could go either way. They definitely gave us more backstory on how that's going to play out in the seasons, but I mean, we meet Yuta in like episode 6 of the first season or something like that, and so it's like nice to go back and see like, but it's like you had just like a small glimpse of him, so it's like I feel like it's not really going to be a focus, but it was just like an introduction into Jujutsu Kaisen, and I think it'd be like a good place to start for someone that hasn't seen it, and then going back and watching the anime, and it's like you have an introduction to some of the other students and stuff already.
Yeah, for me, I definitely recommend the movie, especially if it's something you want. Like it established all the rules of the universe and also introduces the characters and puts them in situations that obviously, as you're saying, like that make the show make a little bit more sense.
hmm
So I definitely recommend it because for me, like, watching it at like 12 midnight and then finishing at 2 a.m. I was like, you know what, this could have been worse. So it's so I for me I'm like the reason I wanted to have you on is like I'm as casual as it gets. It's very hard for me to jump into any anime. It really has to be something like Demon Slayer, My Hero Academia, One Punch Man, something that
Mhm.
really like transcends and crosses over and stuff like that for me to like get hooked to. And like even some of those I don't say it out loud much, but I've never watched Attack on Titan. I've watched like one episode, two episodes, but I just never got it and never clicked with me. It's like Game of Thrones to me. Like when Game of Thrones was super popping, I was like, I just don't get it. And so for me, yeah, I thought it was really telling that I was able to grasp what was going on and really enjoy it for the action and also the story.
Yeah, and I feel that they gave a very vague expression of how like powers and cursed energy and like cursed spirits work. Like I feel like it's definitely more in depth going through the episodes of the season because they break things down a little bit more. But the movie's definitely a really good introduction. I really, really enjoyed it, and I think anyone who enjoys anime hasn't seen Jujutsu Kaisen would be a really good place for them to start. I envision this having like earning its own place with like all the top animes like Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, like Bleach, all that. Like it's kind of like a household name at this point, just like Demon Slayer.
For sure. And, thank you for coming on and jumping on the podcast. I know it's your first podcast. And so I appreciate you being our resident anime expert. And hopefully, when they come out with another big movie, we'll do this again. And we don't have to watch it at 2 a.m. And it's not about.
Yeah, no, I really am grateful that I got to watch the movie. And time you need your resident anime expert, you just give me a call.
I appreciate you, Robbie. Well, guys, please follow the podcast on Instagram and Twitter and also TikTok. That's where we're kind of like the most active. As more episodes come on, we really appreciate you guys listening in. The more you guys listen, the more we're able to have guests like Robbie on and able to review things like Jujutsu Kaisen early. So please continue to like, subscribe, listen to where you can, whether it be Spotify, Apple Music, and from that, bada boom.
Bada boom.